Montana has a dark side to its history. It was a territory in the Old West days, and before that, part of the larger Dakota territories before it was formed. Gold came out of Montana, so early prospectors formed small little minor camps, which then turned into small little towns. Here you see a first Masonic lodge on the second floor, and on the first floor is a schoolhouse. These men who built these gold towns also needed to control the gold coming out of their places. And thus, the Vigilantes and the story of the Vigilantes. Here's a story of one way up north.
Hang loose, mongoose. Instead of the newspaper, regular, I'm just going to look at this newspaper from 1800s. There's a serious thing going on. 10 men lynched. Vigilantes in Montana trying to put an end to a reign of terror. This is out of New York Times. Out of St. Paul, February 5th. The Butte Intermountain, a paper published in western Montana, has an account of the lynching of 10 men by vigilantes, which, though it must have occurred more than a week ago, has not been heard of by the Telegraph. The lynching occurred at Weeksville, a new railroad point near Missoula. Side note, Weeksville is about a few miles down the road where I taught that bad boy school. The Intermountain says, less than 3 days ago, it will be remembered, Billy the Kid, well known in Butte, was captured, shot, all to pieces, and thrown into the river. But last Sunday was the bloodiest red-letter day ever, known at the terminus, the train terminus. I'm not sure about this particular point in history of Billy the Kid. Who are you talking about? Well known in Butte. Was captured. So Billy the Kid was shot to pieces in Butte, Montana? That doesn't sound right. And there's a reason I stopped because of that. For many weeks past, a spirit of lawlessness, robbery, and murder has reigned supreme at that point. Good citizens were terrorized, and the rules of the robbers were so potent that it became unsafe for any man with $1 in his pocket to appear on the street, even in broad daylight, while under cover of darkness, a carnival of crime was conducted by the thugs and cutthroats who so greatly outnumbered the good citizens that any attempt to arrest and punish the criminals was attended with almost certain death to those who might otherwise have been willing to aid in the enforcement of law, and in visiting upon the head of the guilty the proper penalties for its infraction. Dire alarm took possession of the business community, and it finally became evident that, unless all good men were willing to sacrifice their property and leave it, was necessary to terminate the existing reign of terror. This is the vigilante rally kind of thing. The courts were paralyzed, and their edicts were defied. Urged to desperation by the extremities of the situation, and that is situation, not situation, situation, a vigilance committee was organized with great secrecy, and the accessions were soon sufficiently numerous to render its members bold enough to announce their purpose of suppressing the high-handed outrages almost hourly coming to light. Bad stuff happening, huh? Once organized, no time was lost in carrying out the object of the association. They formed the Vigilantes. This is later Vigilantes. There's later Vigilantes and there's early Vigilantes in Montana. Another story. On last Sunday night, 4 desperados known as Ohio Dan, Blondie, Ed Enright, and another man were arrested. The first 3 were hanged without ceremony, and the 4th was converted into a lead depository. Yeah, it took me double to read that too. Converted into bullets and made out of lead, and they were deposited. I see. He was converted into a lead depository. No, that's something someone can use somewhere. He was shot all to pieces. At the Y, another camp 2 miles west of Weeksville. Okay, I was gonna make a YMCA joke there. Y, another camp 2 miles west of Weeksville, a similar scene was enacted. 3 men, names unknown, being hanged. Now remember, it's never hung; it's always hanged. So at least the author got that right. On the same tree at the same time. So another camp, 3 men lynched. Boom, same time. Not them 3 at the same time. They were hanged at the same time these other hangings are going on. When the coach left Weeksville, that's like stagecoach, left Weeksville, so a lady passenger stated to Mr. Hart the bodies of 2 men were still dangling in the air from a limb of a tree, giving the early morning scene a ghastly aspect. I'm going off in my little coach now. Oh, the fruit is hanging low in that tree. Oh my... It was also reported to her that the 3 victims at the Y camp were similarly suspended, having been thus left by the avenging vigilantes so that there should be no possibility of a return to life. Did Clint get his hang 'em high idea from this? I don't know. There was Blondie up there, and then there's possibility of returning to life from being hanged. Well, there's ones where definitely no possibility of return to life. The hanging of these 7 men has been all likelihood exerted a salutary effect in improving the morals of the town. The more you hang, the better people are gonna behave. And if the protective society hanged only those who deserved the death penalty, the fact that the courts were inoperative will largely justify their conduct. So it's a little bit like they're acknowledging we could have hanged someone that wasn't deserving to be hanged, but since the courts were paralyzed, it's okay. On another authority, it was learned that last Monday witnesses the hanging of the 3 more men whose high crimes had become known and who were considered too wicked to be allowed to afflict the earth any longer with their presence. Now that is quotable from the Old West. Notice this is 1883 out of New York Times, so this is East Coast. This stuff's happening on the West Coast. If you look at, if you know Montana, Missoula, Montana, and the north, and if you go northwest out of Missoula, Montana, there's a river, Clark Fork River. It goes into the canyon and into the woods. It's deep, dark woods and long and windy, and it goes a little north and flows north. There's where Weeksville is. Kind of far. Like, 90 miles up the river. It's like almost Canadian. So, this is the news report of vigilante action from the Old West, Montana, that they got in New York Times in February 6, 1883. And there's going to be more on vigilantes because there's a big story in the Old West that I might cover. Thank ya. Aloha.